Alright guys, so as you can tell, I'm kind of experimenting with a new setup here. I have to upgrade a couple things. This is the first time I've ever kind of set up a kind of studio, if you like. So yeah, I thought I will just kind of test some stuff out today. As you can see, I've got kind of a backlight here, which I bought for like, I don't know, it's like $7. And it changes colors. I've never built like a setup before. I always just kind of wing my videos, but I thought, I don't know, you know, I've had more time. I want to create these different kinds of videos. I also got this light here. It's a key light, and those are my current upgrades. The next upgrade is a new camera, and I'm looking at the A6700 from Sony because the video looks good on it. And yeah, what color do we want? So just winging it really. I've been looking at videos on how to set up this kind of studio, but then I have to take into consideration that I move around a lot. So I'm back in Taiwan now until December before I go to Japan for 3 months. So I want to be able to kind of carry my studio with me. So I was looking up lighting. This light looks easy to travel with. So I got this, it's called the Elgato Key Light Mini. And then this thing, I just thought as a backlight, it looked pretty cool. I just saw it on this local online store. Like it's kind of like the Taiwan Amazon. And I just saw it on there for like $7. Comes with a remote, you can change the colors. So I thought, oh, I'll give that a go. It's kind of like a backlight. So hopefully I can take this around everywhere with me. I already have my microphone and stuff. So the next thing is like a camera. The camera I'm using now, I've had since like 2017. What is it? I don't even know what it is. It's like a Panasonic Lumix. Is it a G8? It was like the cheapest camera that shot 4K at the time. So I just got it. But I definitely need to upgrade after like 7 years. It's still decent, I think. I've kind of freed up more time with my work and everything, so I can make kind of more videos like this. I started off obviously making videos on this channel, like traveling a bit, and then talking about my Japanese mission. But then I got a lot of questions on my Instagram and then in my comments and stuff asking about different things, and I figured, well, I suppose I do live somewhat of a unique life. So one of the questions I wanted to address was loneliness. How do you combat loneliness? I think I made it was from a video I made about how when I was in my early 20s, when I graduated university and I started working in my first job, I started getting like panic attacks and anxiety attacks. And I think it came from a combination of an unhealthy office drone lifestyle mixed with a lot of coffee, mixed with a lot of stress. And then some people were asking me like, well, now how do you combat loneliness if you're like living in other countries and things like that? So I wanted to address that and talk about that a little bit. Like, do I get lonely? I was thinking about this a lot more. So since I started my online business, since it only started paying me what I wanted to be paid before I quit my job, my teaching job, I've only been doing it like just over a year. So I quit my job like middle of last year. So I didn't really travel a lot. I traveled a little bit, but then like a few months ago or 2 months ago, I did like a lot of traveling just to kind of put that, you know, try that digital nomad lifestyle. And traveling is fun, but fun is not really what keeps me going. I'm really like a fulfillment kind of person. I like working on things. And for me, that's fun. And actually, most of the time when I was traveling in Europe, if you can see my shorts, I made a bunch of shorts when I was traveling to different places. That was with a friend of mine. And then I went to Thailand and I spent about a week there. And that was like the first time where I was like in a new country on my own. And what I found was I just did the same stuff as I always do. I wake up, I get coffee, I go to the gym, I get my groceries delivered. And the time when you really notice the loneliness is on the weekend. Or like Friday night, you know, sometimes I like to go out to dinner, sometimes I like to meet my friends, sometimes I'll even go, you know, I'm a single guy, I'll go look for some girls with my friends, you know, in the club or something still. That's something I'm moving away from more and more though, the older I get. But sometimes I'll do it. Just being social, let's just put it that way. So that's when I noticed a bit of loneliness. So then a week into Thailand, when I was on my own, a friend of mine from the States came to visit, and then we had a blast for another week. And then I went to Vietnam and I kind of pushed it even more. So I spent a month in Ho Chi Minh and I don't know anybody. And the first thing I did is I thought to myself, well, okay, this thing is going to happen on the weekend again. It's going to come Friday, Saturday. This is the time. I work really hard Monday to Friday. I'm very regimented. I even eat clean, and I just try to knuckle down and, you know, have my shit together Monday to Friday. So then Friday night, Saturday night, I like to do something, even if it's like go to a restaurant with someone. So the first thing I looked to was like dating apps. That's like the obvious choice. And in Europe, I tried that a little bit. I got some messages, but in Europe, I wasn't in those places for longer than a couple of days. And, you know, it's a lot of tourists, so I wasn't that keen, you know, short-term flings, trying to meet up when you're only in a place for 3 or 4 days. You know, I just couldn't be bothered. But in Vietnam, it's a lot easier. Southeast Asia, it's easier to date. We'll just call a spade a spade. So I was able to date, and that kind of cured the loneliness to a point, because there's different kinds of socializing, right? Like, so the thing that I was missing was friendship socializing, like speaking to people who speak my language. So I was kind of feeling a bit, you know, while hanging out with women is okay, you know, they are Vietnamese, English is their second language. You can't speak completely freely. They're not going to get references or jokes. Certain things you say, you have to explain. And, you know, hanging out with dudes is different from hanging out with girls. So you kind of miss, I guess the same thing would be, I guess it would be the same reverse, right? Like, if I went out and tried to make male friends and it was in a country where there aren't any women, maybe I'd get sick of the reverse. So I guess maybe it's a grass is greener situation. But anyway, that's one way I was still able to battle loneliness. I don't know whether I'm introverted or extroverted. When I'm keen to go out, I'm quite social. But it's almost for me like a fix. And I have a friend who we're both similar in that way. Like, we'll go out like Friday night or Saturday night, then it's like, oh, I got my fix. Now I don't really need to see anybody on Sunday or Monday or throughout the week. You know, that's kind of like how I think of it. So I don't get lonely, you know, 5 to 6 days out of 7 of the week. But it's just kind of that one day where I'm like, all right, I've done all my work this week. I want to reward myself. I want to do something. I want to go out. Now I'm ready to socialize. Now my fuel gauge is up. I'm ready to, you know, get that fix. You know, maybe I am introverted, I don't know, maybe I'm both, but there are times when you want to be social and there are times when you don't. So that was kind of one way I did it. In Taiwan, I came back to Taiwan. I obviously have friends here because I've been here like 15 years. Getting a date here is probably, well, it depends, you know, what you look like and if you take care of yourself, but it's about equal to Vietnam. I can get dates here as well from dating apps. It's not that hard. And now Japan is going to be like the real test. So maybe I could make another video on this topic, because that's a place that I'm going. I don't know anybody. I'm going there for 3 months. I've already booked a place for 3 months. And I think it's probably going to be harder to date. So I have to come up with different ways to combat loneliness, to help me to reward myself with some kind of community socializing or whatever. And the way I'm planning for that is I have a couple of strategies. And the first one is to look for events. So luckily the place that is putting me up has events that I can go to, and that will involve putting myself out there, which I'm happy to do. There's something about moving to a place where you don't live and you're not from. It kind of makes you less introverted. You're kind of like, I'm not even from here, I don't live here, so you you have this feeling of like reinventing yourself. I do, at least anyway. So I'm gonna look for events like that. Another thing which I've done here, but I only started to do maybe in the last 2 years. I think before that I was almost too introverted to do it, was to go to bars alone. Not clubs, but like cocktail bars. In a club, I don't know, everybody has like a certain energy level, and if you don't match it, it's hard to engage with people, I think. But a bar, like a cocktail bar, especially bars where you're like next to strangers, and Japanese bars are set up that way a lot of the time. Like if you look at places like Golden Guy, or just general craft cocktail bars, they're kind of like that. In Taipei, I've met people, I've like gone out to cocktail bars, I've sat down, and people are right next to you. And when people are in a bar drinking and next to you, everybody gets Dutch courage. So they might be like, yo, cheers, cheers. And I just find that that's a consistent way to like socialize. Like that works. The downside is it might be a bit expensive, but it's one way that I'm planning to use. Another way is, which I'm considering, is like church groups. I've never really done it before, but I remember I had friends in my high school that did it. We had homestay students. I remember we had a homestay student when I was in high school. He was from Indonesia, and he used to go to this church every Saturday, and he like, you know, he would, it wasn't like a church where like some old, it's almost like, it's church, but it's also some massive social event. So that guy was Indonesian, and actually we had a couple of homestays who used to do this. So they'd go to like the Indonesian community church or whatever, and it would be like, you know, I remember he would get dates from there, he would meet girls from there, he had like whole friendship circles from there, because it feels like it's 50% church, 50% kind of social gathering, meeting people. So that would be another option. Another option I'm thinking is to go to a class like jiu-jitsu, or I know in Taipei I met a guy, and he'd been here like a few months, and I remember we were at this bar and we saw him, and he was with like a bunch of people. We're like, hey man, how come you have like a bunch of friends already? And he was like, oh, because certain bars like sponsor football teams or soccer teams and other sports teams, so you can like join their team, right? So that's like another thing. Joining any club, really. I used to be a professional dancer. I've even considered going to like a swing dance class. I think swing dance looks awesome, but not everybody's going to be into that. But I think any kind of class, yoga, this is going to help you to meet people as well. Is it difficult? Kind of. I mean, the difficult part, I feel like difficulty comes with friction, and friction comes with the unknown. But once you do something once, it becomes a lot easier. Like, I remember going to Thailand, Vietnam, and this was like the first time, you know, like I said, I've been in a country on my own. And I remember like in both countries thinking, oh, all right, I'm gonna go to this gym now. And I was looking on Google Maps, you know how it has like how many people are there, it tells you how busy it is. And I found myself kind of procrastinating going there because it was like too busy. And then I started thinking like, oh, I'm gonna have to like register, and like, will they speak English? Oh, and then like, what kind of people go to this gym? I was kind of like talking myself out of it. And then I remember in Thailand, I just remember like opening the door of my hotel and just leaving and walking there and going in. And then like, I don't know, it's a new place, right? It's a new experience. Maybe depending on the kind of person you are going to have a little bit of your limbic system, your animal brain going, oh, new environment, you're on a little bit high alert, maybe you're a bit anxious. But you go in, there's a person behind the counter who wants your business, they make it easy for you, they've done it 1,000 times before, and they're like, there you go, you can go in. I was like walking around, looking at the machines, there's people working out, nobody gives a shit about you, which is, a lot of people who have that kind of anxiety, it's because they think everyone's looking at them. But when you come to the realization that no one gives a shit about you and they only care about themselves, you would think that that would be a depressing thought, but it's actually quite liberating. But I remember, I had like a bit of, I felt a bit weird about going to these new places. But like I said, the friction came from the unknown. The second day I went there, I felt like I've been going there my whole life. I knew where all the machines were. I knew where I wanted to go. I knew what I wanted to use that day. I knew where it was. Because the first day I was like, oh, there's the bench. There's like the leg area. There's like the treadmills are over there. Okay, there's like the benches and the racks are over here. And once that friction is, once you do something more than once, all of that worry goes out the window. So the point is, I guess, to come full circle, is that loneliness is something that you have control over. Everybody has a different threshold as to how introverted or how extroverted they are, and how much time they can spend around people before they start getting annoyed or before they want their solitude. But controlling the loneliness itself, I think the power's in your hands. And I see a lot of posts on Instagram threads, which I've just recently started looking at. I think it's because they start coming up on the feed. And I'm being fed a lot from Japan. And there's a lot of people who are like, oh, I've been in Tokyo this long, I'm so lonely. And I think, maybe they're just venting their frustrations. But as I was about to say, your loneliness is controllable by how much you're willing to put yourself out there. And you got to ask yourself this, people say they want things, right? But I believe that actions determine what you want. So for example, if you're like, I don't want to be lonely, but then you're not willing to go to a class, or you're not willing to go to a church or a meetup, or go to a cocktail bar and see if you can meet someone, that means you prefer loneliness to putting yourself out there, right? So even if you say, I don't want to be lonely, well, it appears to me from your actions that you don't really mind being lonely that bad. Maybe you're just venting. Because if you really wanted it, if you really didn't want to be lonely, you'd kind of be out there. That's all you can really say about that. That's like a philosophy, I guess, you come to realize. I remember, I think it was a girl I was dating, and her friend was venting about the fact that she couldn't find a guy. And I was like, she's overweight. She can't find a guy because she's overweight. It's simple as that. She was fat. Guys don't like fat girls. And I remember the girl I was dating is like, well, she's nice on the inside. And I'm like, you're not making the effort to understand what men want. You're not making the effort to align the requirements of the job with what you need to be. She can complain all day, oh, I really want a guy, I really want a man, I really want to get married. But it seems to me that she really wants cake and ice cream more. When people say they want something, I want to see what you're doing in order to get it. I don't want to hear you saying I want it. I want a yacht, right? I want a Lambo. I want to date some Russian model. I think of loneliness in the same way. What do I do to combat loneliness? Well, first of all, I don't get that lonely. And second of all, if I really was lonely and it was really affecting me, I get online, I get on my phone, I look at ways to find where there are people. And you can do the same. There are tons of ways to meet people, as I've illustrated. And you just have to find the way that makes you have to find the way that you're willing to do. People say going to a jiu-jitsu class is difficult. And then after they do it, they're like, that was easy. But I can see how it might be difficult. I can see how some people might not be ready to walk into a place and have people wrestle them to the ground and choke them out. Fine. Then can you go sit in the back of a church and then make a conversation with someone? Can you go sit in a cocktail bar where there's a couple of people sitting and chat to a bartender? Have a couple drinks, loosen up, and then maybe talk to the person next to you. For me, that's always been an easy one, it's consistent, because you're meeting people who are probably the same as you. Are you willing to go to a yoga class and then go every day for a week, so that you become a familiar face, and then maybe start engaging with people? Because these are the ways, Are you willing, jump on dating apps, right? I think on dating apps now you have like the friendship version. You can try that. You try everything. I mean, what's the worst that can happen, So how do I combat loneliness? That's really it. My go-to is usually hit the cocktail bar or Bumble date. And so far, that's all I've needed to do. That's gotten me to meet people. But in Japan, I'm going to be there for 3 months. I might try different things. So I might update this video and tell you the different things that I'm going to do. Maybe I will go to a church. That's going to be something brand new for me. I also want to do a class. I mean, I spend a lot of my time on Japanese, but I feel like I need a hobby. Because even though I've just said I find it easy to meet people going to like small bars and stuff, I do want to not rely on alcohol. I do really want to cut down on alcohol. So maybe a class will be the move. But that's what life is about, putting yourself out there. And, if you feel like you're going to explode, just create your own exit strategy. If you're like, all right, I'm going to put myself out there, I'm going to go to this dance class, and if I'm going to explode from panic at any point, I'm just going to go, oh, hold on a second, I just got a call from my mom, 1 sec. And you run off down the street and run away and cry under your covers. You're an adult. You're never going to be in any situation that you can't just extradite yourself from if you really don't like it. Maybe you go somewhere, you're trying something out and you're just like, oh man, this is all people I don't want to know. Then you just leave. You don't have to please anybody if you're never going to see them again. So I don't know if that answers your question of how do I deal with loneliness. I'm going to be able to answer that question a lot better. I mean, I'm putting myself into more and more situations where I am alone. It was Thailand for a week before my friend came, and then we had a blast. And then it was Vietnam for a month. I thought it was fine. And now it's going to be Tokyo for 3 months, which is going to be even more. So maybe this can be like an ongoing topic, but leave your questions below. Like, what things specifically are you worried about when it comes to loneliness? Like, are you thinking of traveling somewhere and you're like, oh, what if I feel lonely? If so, drop it below and I'll see. Hopefully I answered the question. So that's all. This video was really just to test out my setup. I don't know if I'm even going to put this video out because the way I have the lighting right now, it's the first time I've ever done this. So if I put it into Final Cut Pro now and it looks like crap, I'm not even going to bother editing it. But if I edit it, then you'll see it. So there you go. That's my little setup that I just did today. I hope it looks good, and catch you on the next one. Take care.